Benefit. Other ways of acquiring a hadith other than hearing. As stated, the scholars have documented a number of ways of receiving a hadith. And again, remember, all of the religious knowledge is transmitted like the hadiths. In this beginner's manual, we will only mention a couple besides hearing. One way to get a hadith and be included in the continuity of the chain, so you got it and you're in the chain, is by permit or license, or what is called Ijazah. However, in our day, some people are more impressed with this type than they should be. Today, when some hear about another having an Ijazah, they assume that he is a high-ranking scholar or authority, and this is not necessarily the case. Maybe some of you got Ijazah in Shama'il, right? Didn't Sheikh Samir give Ijazah in Shama'il by At-Tirmidhi? So you became scholars by that? No, it means that now you can narrate the book and be included in the chain. To have an Ijazah is permission to narrate, especially what one did not hear. For example, if a student was taking a book from his sheikh and he dozed off from time to time, so he did not hear some of the words of the book, or perhaps he was absent for a session, then he should go to his sheikh or peers and read to them what he missed. That's best, because then he got it by hearing. He filled the gap by hearing. Or have them read to him. So he filled his gaps by hearing. Or he could be given an Ijazah in the book, which patches the gaps that he missed. Or perhaps a sheikh knew that a student has the proficiency and understanding in the information in a certain book. So he gives him permission in the book without the student hearing it. This could be the case. A person might be, let's say, an advanced student. And so he comes to a book which his knowledge encompasses. He can understand and clarify this book, even though he may not have read that book per se. So he didn't take that particular book by transmission, but he has enough knowledge that what he has learned encompasses this book. So his sheikh, knowing him, may say to him, go teach that book, even without him hearing it. He might say, Ajaztuka, I give you Ijazah in this book, go and pass it on. So perhaps a sheikh knew that a student has proficiency and understanding in the information in a certain book, so he gives him permission in the book without the student hearing it. However, hearing, as already stated, is greater than a license. In fact, some of the old elite imams completely rejected the idea of an Ijazah. However, this opposition has gone extinct. Those who have rejected the idea of an Ijazah, this has gone extinct and was overcome by its widespread acceptance. That means today you don't find anyone who rejects Ijazah. Due to the overwhelming ignorance of our time, one would be more impressed by hearing that someone has an Ijazah than by hearing that he sat with and heard from the people of knowledge. Some scoundrels use that to their advantage to make people believe that they are scholars. And perhaps some actually think of themselves as scholars. How would that be far-fetched? How would it be far-fetched that a person thinks himself a scholar because he has many ijazahs, when some people think of themselves as scholars merely due to the books they read, and they neither have a teacher nor an ijazah? There's people who read tons and tons of books, maybe hundreds of books, without a teacher, and so really they have all kinds of stuff swimming in their heads without arrangement, without clarity, and they think they're scholars because they read so many books, and really they're confused and they don't know it. So how would it be far-fetched that some people have many ijazahs so they think that they're scholars? Among the people are those who travel the lands asking scholars for ijazahs while neglecting to ask for verbal lessons. They don't go to the scholar and say, may I sit with you? May I accompany you? Can I learn from you? Can I read such and such book on you? Rather, their goal is to go to the scholar and say, can I get ijazah from you? So that the scholar will take 4 seconds to say ajaztuka, or less than that, 1 second, ajaztuka, I give you ijazah, and then he moves on. And he hasn't really acquired the knowledge. They collect many ijazahs, then go out to the people saying, I have ijazah from so-and-so and so-and-so. So the ijazah is good. Of course, I'm not saying it's bad. We're just saying, what? Put it in its proper place. Now that you have put the ijazah in its proper place, know that although the ijazah gives permission to transmit what one may not have heard, it is not enough to then pick up any copy of the licensed book and convey from it. Before conveying from that book, the licensed person should check the copy that he wants to use by comparing it to a reliable checked copy. After comparison and adjusting his copy, he can transmit from it. So it means you got an ijazah, let's say, for example, in Al-Bukhari, Sahih Al-Bukhari. So it doesn't mean that any copy of Bukhari you find, you can just have a circle of knowledge and open it up and start reading and say, I have ijazah. No, what you need to do is, the best thing to do, of course, is to sit with someone and hear it. But if you're just going to rely on your ijazah, then what you need to do is find a reliable copy. Yes, nuskha madbuta. A reliable copy, or mawthuqa. Nuskhatun mawthuqa, a trusted copy. Madbuta means all its letters and vowels are verified. Mawthuqa means it's trusted, so it's the same thing actually. Or mu'tamada, a reliable copy. And then you compare your copy to that copy. And you adjust your copy to match that copy, then transmit from your copy. So before conveying from that book, the licensed person should check the copy that he wants to use by comparing it to a reliable checked copy. After comparison and adjusting his copy, he can transmit from it. After knowing that, think about how many people simply buy a copy of Al-Bukhari, for example, and without a teacher or a license or even checking their copy, sit before the people and teach from it. One should have a reliable copy, even if he wrote it out by hand. It does not have to be printed to be taken seriously. Just because someone's copy is handwritten doesn't mean that it's a joke. It should be laughed at. Your handwritten copy of a book may be more valuable than a printed copy if it is more precise and through sound isnad. Let's say, for example, you sat in the lesson of Sheikh Samir and he's reading one of the books of the scholars. And you are writing. You're writing it out with your own hand. You're sitting in the session and writing. And you copied it all out. Then someone comes with a copy from the store. He went to the store and bought a copy. You copied a copy with your hand. Someone has a copy from the store. That copy from the store needs to be checked. Could have misprints, etc. Of course, your handwritten copy needs to be checked also, but assuming that it is checked and it's good, then your handwritten copy is more valuable than this printed copy. Just because it's printed doesn't make it more valuable. How did the scholars of old make copies? They wrote their copies by hand, or took a copy of what they wanted and duplicated to professional, trustworthy scribes. That is the old version of what? What do you call that copy store? Famous one. I don't know. You got Campus Copies, Printing Press, all those places, right? Staples. Okay. There's places where you can get stuff copied, right? So back in the day, they didn't have those, but they did have people that, Kinko's, that's the one I was thinking of. Thank you. But they did have people who, that was their job. That was their profession. You bring him a book, tell him I need copies of this. And he'll make copies for you. Or you can copy it yourself. Sometimes the scholar himself has copies of his own book. He gives it to his students. Say, here, take this copy. They wrote their copies by hand or took a copy of what they wanted and duplicated to professional, trustworthy scribes. That trustworthy is very important. What is the source of the modern printed copies? Handwritten manuscripts, of course, right? These printed copies that we have of Bukhari and Muslim and all these different books, well, they didn't have computers and typewriters back in the day. So what's the source of those printed copies that we have? It's the handwritten manuscripts. A reliable copy is of the utmost importance because a misprint could fall anywhere, even in the title. I've seen that. There could be a missing word, sentence, or entire paragraph. I've seen all of that. There could be a misspelling or incorrect grammar that may or may not alter the meaning. Some printers are not reliable, like Darul Kutub al-Ilmiya. Darul Kutub al-Ilmiya is probably the biggest book publisher in Lebanon and one of the biggest in the world and probably one of the sloppiest. We've seen copies from Darul Kutub that were horrendous, horrible, atrocities. Sheikh Kamal Hood said about them, they think they did you a favor if they reviewed the book twice before they put it out. And he said they have Christians working there. So, just guys sitting at computers typing up stuff. Meaning, what's the point? They're people who are not necessarily, should not be trusted with Islamic material. And he said they might type up a book and then after that they sit around and play cards. And I'm sure he's a person who doesn't talk out of conjecture. So yeah, you want a book, Darul Kutub probably has it. But if you want a good copy, you might want to look for another publisher. Not all of their books are horrible, but many of them are, if not most. I had a copy of a book from Darul Kutub. I had a copy of Kashf al-Niqab, an explanation of Mulhat al-I'rab from Darul Kutub. There are so many typos on one page. I don't think they even read the book twice. Not even twice. So many typos on one page. I was so disturbed at what I had in my hands that I wanted to make a video about it. I had in my heart that I went through the whole book, every single letter, and I circled every typo that I found, reading through it once, I circled all the typos I found just reading through it once. And every page had about 3 to 5 mistakes in it. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. So be careful if you have a book from Darul Kutub al-Ilmiyah. I have seen books from Darul Kutub that are pretty much good. Now, any publisher is bound to make mistakes. So, that's not where my issue is. Because you find a typo in a book, that's not my issue. My issue here, I think, is clear, is that these people are negligent. So a reliable copy is of the utmost importance because a misprint could fall anywhere, even in the title. There could be a missing word, sentence, or entire paragraph. There could be a misspelling or incorrect grammar that may or may not alter the meaning. People of knowledge have made mistakes due to corrupted copies. So how about laymen? In fact, unless one has memorized his original copy, his asl, which is his personal verified copy, he should not even convey from a book that he actually did hear, but while the copy he has in his hands is not his own checked copy. There could be a misprint, addition, or subtraction in that foreign copy that is not his own copy. Perhaps he made an adjustment or a note for clarity in his copy that he does not recall. So now he has a foreign copy. Sure, he learned this book, but it's not his original copy that he studied from or studied in. And so a note that he wrote for himself is not there, for example. Some publishers are very sloppy and inaccurate, and some are even devious, like Darus Salam. That's the Wahhabi publishing, Darus Salam. Very big publisher, probably one of the biggest Islamic publishers in the world. They have publishing houses all over the world. Darus Salam. Purely Wahhabi. Do not let an ijazah be your target. Let it be strong, authentic transmission with or without an ijazah. The ijazah is the excuse that some Wahhabis have given to Al-Albani. They claim he is a world-class hadith scholar. So when questioned about his qualifications, by it being said to them, produce a chain of narration from Al-Albani back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he is a hadith scholar. They would say, while unable to produce a single chain, he has ijazah. This is a horrible answer, for even if he had an ijazah, that does not negate the existence of a chain. So having an ijazah is not at all sufficient to be a hadith scholar. For almost anyone can get an ijazah, even the mere students, and even a layman. Some scholars at the end of their books have given ijazah to everyone. Some scholars said anyone who finds this book has ijazah. So that makes you a scholar? Furthermore, had he had a chain, this still would not make him a scholar, for the mere students have chains. The true scholars not only have chains, but many, many chains. In fact, they may have many chains for any individual book as a testimony to how many times they reviewed the same book on different sheikhs as they traveled the lands, benefiting from scholar after scholar, taking Sahih al-Bukhari over and over again, and Sahih Muslim and Abu Dawood, etc., and other books. Thus, his lack of even a single chain is an indication that he is not among the people of Hadith, and that instead he is bankrupt and corrupt for posing as one. One Wahhabi once claimed to have a chain for Al-Albani. When it was requested of him to produce it, he refused, claiming that it must be protected from the hands of the enemies. The chain is the tool for distinguishing the authentic from the fraudulent. What is the point of having a chain and keeping it secret? That's what happened with me one time when I argued this with a Wahhabi. So I argued him down about Al-Albani not having a chain. He said, no, he has a chain, I'll get it. So he came back to me maybe a few days later. He said, I have a chain for Al-Albani. I said, okay, let me see it. He said, I cannot give it to you because you are the enemy. MashaAllah. Once I had a debate with some guy, I don't know what he was. And he claimed that he was a hafiz of Quran. So he kept telling me, I'm a hafiz of Quran, I'm a hafiz of Quran. I told him, you're a hafiz, let me test you. He said, no. I said, okay. So then in the course of our discussion, I mentioned an ayah. He said, where is this ayah? I told him, I thought you said you're a hafiz of Quran. He said, I need to review. I told him, okay, even if you need to review, even if you need to review, like this doesn't even ring a bell for you, I'm telling you the ayah is not even ringing a bell, so that you're asking me where the ayah is? Subhanallah. Ameen. Ameen. Another way to acquire a hadith is by finding Ijazah. This is among the weakest ways to get a hadith. But know that when the scholars spoke about finding a hadith, they meant finding it in the handwriting of one sheikh, while of course he recognizes the handwriting. In such a case, when conveying, one would say, I found in his handwriting that he said. If finding a hadith in the sheikh's handwriting is a weak acquisition, like you might know your sheikh's handwriting, like I know Sheikh Samir's handwriting, for example, what would be the strength of relying on an unchecked copy that is printed in some standard font and thus is not in any particular person's handwriting, especially when one does not have any ijazah or a sheikh? How weak is his transmission? A Wahhabi once said to a Sunni with whom he was disputing, the difference between us is that you continually tell me what you heard while I tell you what I read. Thinking that the fact that his information was from books made it more authentic and relevant. Throughout all of his reading, did he not read in the hadith books all of the chains that say, I heard and he told me? So again, if you wish to acquire and transmit the knowledge soundly, let determination bind you. Put the effort to sit before the people of knowledge. Then study and memorize and put the worldly distractions behind you. We ask Allah to make us preservers of the religion and among the people of sound reception and transmission. Ameen. Any questions so far?